because the microphone's way over now.
Okay. So you gotta do that intro.
Welcome to the stream. This is my dad and my son. We're gonna talk about shit. That's it. That's my intro.
That's a horrible
It
intro.
doesn't have to be anything.
Are we recording right now?
Yes.
We are. We might have to. Are you gonna be good with this shit?
Yeah, you have to talk to the beginning. So we're good to go now? Everybody all set? Everybody good? Hey folks, welcome to another edition of Primo Nutmeg. This is your host Steve, and joining me on this monumental, multi-generational edition are my father, who I refer to as Dad. How's it going, Dad? Great. And my grandfather, the world-famous, internationally known, good-looking, fun to be with pal, who I will refer to as Papa, and who my father will refer to as Dad.
So maybe I'll be able to get a word or two in here after these two fellows get to speaking.
Well, I do appreciate both of you being on the show. So as you know, I actually had a radio show on the Notre Dame College radio station, and I wanted to have you guys on when I was there because I wanted to talk to you both about music. Like, the concept of my show was the entire history of rock and roll, and Papa, you were around back when rock got started, right? And probably, like, it started in New Orleans to some extent too, I'd have to say, right? Going on with jazz.
I've seen a lot of famous people live when they started, even.
Like who?
Bill Haley and the Comets.
They started in New
Bo
Orleans.
did. They were playing right on Bourbon Street. I've seen with only 40 or 50 people, Little Anthony Imperials have hardly anybody be in an audience.
We know who we should mention too is Frankie Ford. He actually just passed away a couple days ago. I think was it yesterday?
Yep. No, 28th, I think.
Yeah, he just passed away, and he was actually from New Orleans.
Well, we used to go to parties together, and then Jimmy Clanton
You used to go
and
to parties
with
Frankie Ford.
he went with us. He used to be there. He was real young. He was only like 19 at the time.
Right.
And
So Sea Cruise came out in '59, right?
right.
So you're saying this was before that?
This is when we were young, like I was right at the time I was a young guy. So we went to these parties, and he would be there, and Jimmy Clanton would be there. And these guys were brought into the radio industry and singing, because there were a lot of black entertainers that were singing songs, and they wanted to have white entertainers singing because the radio stations wouldn't play black music.
They took songs from black entertainers, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, Tutti Frutti, I think, is a good example of that.
Yeah.
And they-
Well, Jimmy Clanton was actually to be doing like all of Little Richard's material, and a couple of the singers too. But it was a big thing. And then where I'm from, Fats Domino is there. I know him only from a business relationship at one time, but not on a real personal basis. But a lot of Preservation Hall is there, where all the jazz is in New Orleans anyway.
It's on Bourbon Street, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of famous singers. We used to go to school I went to school with Dr. John,
Really?
Mac Ravenack, yeah.
You're a fan of his, aren't you? Are you really
Nah, I like what he does.
Okay. You kind of have to say that, though, if you're with him, right?
Yeah. Well, if you go on YouTube, there's a fellow that has a song that's on there, only one song, Pete Kogos, and if you listen to that, it's a terrible song. But some of the songs that he did were absolutely great, and we can't find any of them, can't get any of them. But my grandfather, I'd mentioned to you once before that my grandfather had built the home for Louis Prima, a famous entertainer. In fact, David Lee Roth took a lot of his stuff, and
He took the one song.
but Seltzer took some of the stuff and did music with it too, and so a lot of that music is real popular today, even still.
So I guess here's my question for you, though. what era of rock, or I guess which rock artists do you really like a lot? What are your favorites?
My favorite entertainer of all time is Joe Cocker.
Okay.
Joe Cocker. He was absolutely incredible. We used to not do we weren't the promoters, but we were the people selling a lot of the concert tickets for events. And we used to have all of the great seats, and we used to go to that. And then, but the night that he did an event in Lafayette, Louisiana, was absolutely fantastic. And
What made it so great?
well, the fact is that he could actually keep singing and doing his routine, even when he was so drunk and so stoned,
Right.
that that's the only person I've ever seen that's been able to do that like that.
Well,
But he
from
was great.
That famous clip of him that with a little help from my friends that they used on the intro for the Wonder Years. In that at Woodstock, I believe, he was very messed up.
Yep.
But he was also a great entertainer. I mean,
he's not. We know he's not a great singer.
Right.
He's a great entertainer.
You know,
you could put a song across when other people couldn't do that.
So besides Joe Cocker, what other rock artists were you really into, or did you appreciate?
Well,
I know your wife is big into the Beatles, right?
The Beatles?
No, not really.
But you have some Beatles albums or something.
No, that's
I've got all that.
That's your ex-wife.
One time, yeah.
That's my mom. That's mom's
Yeah,
the Beatles.
No,
You got the wives mixed up here.
You were going on
You
and
know
on
that.
about how you had some famous Beatle albums or singles or something. Right? Whatever. Okay.
No, what I had, I'll tell you what I did have. I had a client of mine that one day I was at a yard sale, and I bought from it for $2 a Sun Label record that's an Elvis Presley record that's probably worth, they don't even know the price tag because it was never recorded. And that was really quite a thing. I gave it to one of my clients that lived up in Colchester.
What did you think about Elvis? Were you an Elvis fan?
No, never cared for him.
No.
No, not at all. But I do today. I think he was a great artist.
Well, actually, I kind of appreciate his later stuff more than like the 1950s stuff that he did.
Mm.
Like, I don't know. It seemed like he got more talented over time or something. Because when he started out, he was kind of just ripping off other people, right? Like Hound Dog and stuff like that. Like, he didn't write those songs.
Yeah, but like, for example, Nat King Cole, I don't know if you know who that is, but Nat King Cole took Love Me Tender and was trying to do that. But Elvis Presley was the only person that could really sing that song, I think.
So again, back to my question. Besides Joe Cocker, what other rock musicians were you a big fan of?
Not really.
Not at all?
Nope, not at all.
So what kind of music are you a fan of then?
I'd like all music.
Except rock?
No. I mean, I've been to every concert of every major entertainer. I mean, I think that Billy Preston was a great entertainer. I think that he could.
I don't even know who that is.
He used to be with the Beatles at one time.
Oh, he was before Ringo?
No, he's a keyboard person.
Okay.
And
I know that there was the Beatles, but I thought that like Ringo replaced them.
yeah, well, but he plays on some of the songs. If you go look on YouTube, you can see all of the music. I'm a real fan of YouTube now, more than I ever was. Going to concerts, I like that, but you get so distracted with so many things while you're at a major concert because there's people passing things around and saying, "Here, try this. Here, try that." And sometimes in the past, like I was at a concert that was Reuben Hurricane Carter. He was a fellow that was in jail that was for murder. And, Bob Dylan did this concert, and Diane Cannon and all these people in Houston. And I don't even remember the concert, truthfully, because somebody passed me something, and I did try it, to be honest with you. I was really messed. I can't remember it at all, but not too much.
Yeah. So, Dad, I know that you are into rock music. Who would you say are your favorite bands?
ZZ Top and Van Halen.
Okay. Anybody else besides them? Who you list?
As my favorites?
This is like a really good rock and roll band. I guess who you think are emblematic of like a great
Like Journey.
era.
I think Journey's a good band.
Yeah.
Good stadium, like a stadium rock band. Those guys are good.
You know, I just saw Van Halen last month. You should have gone to that. So.
Well, I've already been twice, and now that I'm older with my tinnitus, it's kind of hard to go listen to really loud
You
rock
only seen them
music.
twice?
Or
I've
three
seen them
times.
twice.
I think I've seen them 3 times.
I remember you.
I saw them twice when they were Van Halen 3 with the Extreme guy, whatever his name is.
Right.
And then I saw him once with you.
You never saw the Sammy Hagar?
No, I never saw Van Hagar. I only ever saw Van Halen and Van Extreme. I don't know what the hell you call the third
It was Van
iteration.
Halen 3, right?
Van Halen 3, right? Which they weren't actually all that bad. The guy was pretty good.
Yeah, well, so I went to this other Van Halen concert last month with Jack and Brandon, and Jack was saying that his favorite song that they played of the night was actually off their new album, some song called Chinatown.
Mm.
So it's like, I don't know, they still come out with good music. Were you a fan of the Van Hagar era, though?
Yeah, I did like the songs actually.
Yeah.
Every time I hear that first song they played off of, was it 5150? Was that the first album they released with Hagar?
I think so.
I think it was. Why Can't This Be Love? Every time I hear it, because the first time I heard it was in a radio, I was driving in a car, and they're like, "Here's the new song from Van Halen." So every time I hear that, I still think of here's the new song from Van Halen. Even though I think it was like '86 or something when they released that song. But yeah, their whole thing kind of changed with Hagar. They went more mainstream, I think,
Right.
and less what they were doing before. But I like them both.
So, I guess my question for you, Papa, would be, when did you stop paying attention to music as it was coming out? Like, when did you start hearing stuff on the radio and stop being interested in it?
I haven't.
You've never been interested in anything?
I haven't not been interested. I'm always interested.
You're asking that wrong question to the wrong person. All right.
I'm just kind of interested in the perspectives on it. So the funny thing is, so Papa, you were kind of mentioning rock bands from when you were a young man,
Yeah.
Which makes sense. You were probably going to concerts and stuff like that. And Dad, for you, it's 80s bands when you were a young man. But
Right.
like I would say the best era of rock would be like the late 1960s throughout the 70s.
That's
right?
correct. That's exactly right.
Yeah. So it's just a weird kind of. Well, so you're saying that you actually like that period better than the like early 60s and 50s.
Yeah. Well, the only people that the Big Bopper, Richie Havens, all these people when they got killed in that plane, those were people that were really
Right.
super entertainers. I mean, they were. If I would have, naturally, I liked Ray Charles, back then because Ray Charles really started a lot of, good songs. I mean, that people really liked, and at that time, early. And then, but I liked Stevie Wonder. I think Stevie Wonder's really good.
I agree.
But there's not anybody that I really want to. You asked me if I liked entertainers. I could go and watch Joe Cocker. I've been to see Joe Cocker 6 times, and I would have gone and seen him. Anytime he plays, even if he's been with Cher at concerts, and I went to see him.
Right.
And I like Cyndi Lauper a lot. I really like Cyndi Lauper.
It's very diverse taste.
Oh, absolutely. I like rap, but I don't care about who the artist is, and I don't pay attention to that. I pay attention to the.
When you're traveling in the car, what kind of radio station you put on?
I don't even play the radio station. I'm on YouTube 8 to 12 hours a day listening to music.
When you're in the car?
No, I'm not in the car hardly at all anymore.
Okay. Well, like on the car ride up here, were you listening to the radio?
I was talking to the other person with me in the car.
Oh dear God.
I didn't turn the radio on. Didn't have it on.
So, Dad, you're very
Yes.
specific with your musical taste.
Yes.
You're a big fan of 1980s music.
Yes.
So, I guess I can understand, I can sympathize with you on why you don't like music since the 1980s. I understand it's gotten dumb.
Well, it's crap.
It's stupid.
Yeah.
But why do you not like music from before the 1980s?
I do. I like stuff from the 70s. I don't particularly like the early 70s and late 60s, all that, I don't know, I'd call it drug-induced music. I don't know, the psychedelic stuff. I can't listen to that crap. I hate it. But
Well,
the stuff from the
See, now,
50s,
I like Vanilla Fudge, though.
I like the 50s music. I like
You couldn't get any
40s.
more than psychedelic than that Vanilla Fudge.
Well, so for me, like,
Like, I don't, you and I have vastly different tastes.
so for me, psychedelic and progressive rock is very interesting. It's very complex. It moves in different areas that you might not expect it to, and it's kind of hard to follow in some ways. But I think of it kind of like classical music. Like a classical music song will go here and there and have these sounds and that sounds, and it kind of tells a story in a certain kind of way, which I find interesting. But
So you like Pink Floyd, right, Steve?
yeah, like.
Yeah.
And it's weird too because Dad, you and I like the same bands, but I like them like the
Different,
earlier version of them, like
Yeah.
early Pink Floyd, like even before the stuff that they play on the radio. Like you hear a lot of "Wish You Were Here" or "Dark Side of the Moon," like that stuff's okay, but the stuff before that, like from Metal or More or Atom Heart Mother, Saucer Full of Secrets, those are really great albums that you'll never ever hear on the radio ever.
And I have no idea what you're
Same
talking
thing with
about.
Genesis, like you're a big Genesis fan, but
Yeah.
but Phil Collins Genesis, not Peter Gabriel Genesis.
Yeah, I would say that's true. I don't like the experimental weird. I don't know. You're a big Yes fan from the early.
Right? Yeah.
I don't like that.
I
at
don't
all.
like this at all.
Well, I don't like the early stuff. I like to put the crap they put out in the 80s. I mean, I'm very specific. I don't know if it's like avant-garde, I suppose, or
Right. So it's like pretentious to you. I think that was a
it's
criticism.
not pretentious. I wouldn't say it's pretentious. I just think it's drug-induced crap that I don't want to listen to. If you want to be perfectly honest, it just doesn't appeal to me. It's kind of meandering and all over the place, a lot of that stuff, and I don't find it. It doesn't move me. So, you know, you may find it musically interesting. Maybe musicians find it musically interesting. It's just not something that just doesn't do it for me. And plus, it doesn't tie to any like part of my youth or anything. It's from before my time, and that's why 80s stuff's a big deal because it's when I was younger.
Yeah.
You know.
But it's weird for me too because like I don't really like the music from when I was a young man.
Mm-hmm. Well, there's nothing to like.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, it was bad.
Three Dog Night were pretty
Three
good
Dog
until
Night's a
they
good
got
band.
until the Wizard got involved with them and they started doing all that music with him playing the organ the way he plays, and I didn't care for that
yeah,
too
I like
much.
the organ stuff. I can't.
Yeah.
It's not, a harpsichord.
But
and
on
all
the
that.
same hand, I liked Billy Preston playing an organ. He's terrific. And some organ music played on a Hammond, a certain type of Hammond organ is absolutely awesome. You just got to have the right instruments too. I think one of the most interesting trips I ever had was when I went to the factory where they make the wah-wah pedals with your great-grandfather.
Right. Bobby.
And I couldn't believe when we went to the factory, and I was figuring we're going to go in this place in New York where they're making these, and there's going to be 1,000 people working there making all of these, and they were big sellers at the time, and there were 6 guys standing on a workbench, and they're putting these things together like really, really fast. And that was it. They were on the 4th floor of a old beat-out warehouse pouring these things out, And
What company was this?
the one that's the famous one. I moved, right. And just the man that owned the company and everything, right there. And Bobby and I are talking to him, and this is not any big to-do thing, It's just 6 guys slapping them together and putting them out the door.
What year was this roughly? Early 60s?
Yeah, a long time ago, man.
Or must have been
Yeah, 60s. After I got married to that lady.
Okay.
Which one? First one?
Number 2.
No, number 2. All right.
So, Paul,
I call her mom.
Papa, you have a lot of interesting stories like that, so I just wanted to go through a few of them. You were the first person to ever own a TV in the city of Nashville. Is that correct?
Probably one of the very first people to have a real television that was on a real television station.
Well, they had them back in the 40s. Like,
Yeah.
I've seen.
Well, that's when I had a television in the 40s.
Well, I've seen like Three Stooges shorts where they're at some millionaire's house and
Yeah.
millionaire will have
Yeah.
television.
No, we had a Philco.
Wait, that's your historical. That's your story.
We have a-
history.
we have
The
a
Three Stooges is where Steven's getting his
We have a
historical
Philco
information.
television set this big, not a big the TV this big, about 9-inch screen, something like they sell to people for individual use now.
Right.
And I had. Can we take a break for a second? Okay, I just have to use a minute.
All right.
A minute. Just give me a second.
So we'll keep talking.
Oh man, you're gonna have to edit a lot.
Okay.
All right. All right. Is it still? Oh, all right. Oh, I see. I'm not worth it. I'm not worth the
Okay.
discussion.
Well, we can just make a note or something of time so we know to edit.
Yeah.
Okay.
You want me to stop? Or?
No, you can get going. Just
Sure.
need to clean it up, I guess.
Yeah, I'll just write down the time.
So, Dad, you
Yes.
tell me a crazy story.
Would you like a Dan Harwood story?
You shouldn't use it.
Oh, why not?
Okay, as long
All
as
right, I'll tell you a story about one of my friends. His name's Dan.
Okay.
And this is the shopping cart story. So,
Title of your story.
yeah, I have a title. So, one night, I think we were in our early 20s or late teens, I don't remember. We used to go to a place, can I name places?
Yeah.
All right. Manchester Parkade in Manchester, Connecticut, which is now just like this vacant. I don't even know if it's there anymore. But it used to be like a big shopping plaza kind of a thing.
Right.
Well-
Was it before the Buckland Mall? Probably?
Yeah. And
Okay.
so all the kids would go there and cruise with their hot rods, their cars, try to pick up chicks or whatever. And we weren't old enough, I think, to go to bars, so we'd go down there, and it was a hot spot for kids that age. So anyways, go down there and fool around, and this guy, Dan, was always drinking, even underage, and he was, he is quite the character. So he got it into his head. We were around the back behind the parkade. There's a movie theater, and they've got these signs that are in and out signs to direct people how to get in and out. There's two ways in. I think there may be only one. I don't even know why those signs are there, but anyway, maybe there's a sign in the back. Anyway, I digress. So the signs are probably about, I don't know, maybe 10 feet, 12 feet up in the air, and there's a shopping cart there because there was a grocery store close. So Dan got it into his head that he was going to put this shopping cart up over the sign. He was convinced that he could throw this thing up over his head onto this sign that was, 10 feet up in the air or whatever.
Right.
So he, of course, my friends, the rest of us, were all egging him on because he's an idiot and there's no way he's going to do this, but he's convinced that he can do it because he worked out a lot. He's one of the muscle guys, he can do it, no big deal. So he gets up there. My other friend tries it and he couldn't even come close. And then, so, Dan's like, oh, I got this, no problem. And he gets up there and he puts everything he's got into it. He's like huffing and puffing with this thing. He's like, He throws the thing up and it's like slips out of his hand. The thing is like all he had, and the thing goes up about maybe an inch up in the air and crashes back down on his nose.
Oh.
And he went flying on the ground and we just died laughing. And then he's like laying on the ground laughing and he's got this gash in his nose and this stupid thing's laying in the street, this thing. So yeah, that's one of the stories from my youth, and we'll never forget that. And whenever we all get together now, even nowadays, like you'll forget things that happened when you're a kid, and like the goofy crap you do, and everybody remembers that one. Just because he was so convinced and he tried so hard, and the thing only went up like maybe an inch up out of his hands and crashed down on his nose.
You know what that brings to mind too? We should mention is that you just got married this time.
Yes, I did.
So congratulations.
Thank you very much.
It's been a long time coming.
Yes, it has.
And was it nice to see all those people? Because I don't And
Yeah.
When's the last time that you were around all those?
Well, Dan was there, and actually, my other friend Steve was there. He was there for the shopping cart incident. He was the other guy who tried to throw it up.
Yeah.
But it was nice to see those people. I just saw Dan recently. Unfortunately, his father just passed away, and I was at the funeral. And afterward, they had a thing.
Right.
The neighbors put on a thing, and there were it was more of a picnic than anything, and a lot of people were there that I hadn't seen. So I got reacquainted with some of my other friends that I hadn't seen in a long time. Steve wasn't there, but I saw Steve, a little while ago at another function. He invited us over, and we got reacquainted. I hadn't seen him I hadn't talked to him for like 20 years or something. So
Yeah, I
Trying
remember
to-
him from when I was little, but I haven't really seen him for a while. I saw him and his wife. I was working at a popular consumer electronics chain, Colchester.
yeah. Well, in answer to your question, it was very nice to see them.
For the record, am I named after Steve?
Yes.
I am.
Yes. You're named after Steve. I don't, despite whatever your mother may say, you are named after my best friend, Steve.
That brings to mind a really good story that your papa can tell.
Okay.
One day we were at a supermarket, and that was you that came with us. That's right. And your grandmother was shopping, and I was standing on the side of the aisle, and you looked around, and you were real young. I don't know, real young. And you're sitting there in the cart, and you pick up the coupons that your grandmother had, and you looked, and you took them, and as you were pouring them on the floor, you said, "Uh-oh." Do you remember that?
I was probably a baby.
Probably less than 2, I would imagine.
But
And
that was a
your
long
big
time
word. Uh-oh
ago.
was a big word.
Uh-oh,
for
when
Steve
we got
he
the
was
boat,
little.
and the first time we took you on the boat over at the Buddhist Reservoir, and I put the pedal down, you went, "Uh-oh," and that's why we named the boat Uh-oh.
Yep. I remember that.
So, I just want to ask you too, since I now know definitively that's why I'm named after. Who is my father named after?
Years ago, there was a movie called David and Lisa,
Really?
and his mother, his mother and I, we went and saw the movie, and when David was born, we got to name him David anyway, but when Lisa was born, we named it David and Lisa. So that was how it
I'm
happened.
named from a movie?
They're named from a movie, that's right.
To look up this.
You don't. I know you thought you were probably from, King David in the Bible or something. So
No, I don't know.
no, that's basically how that happened.
No, I never really thought about it, honestly. It's a common name.
Named after Papa?
I would imagine it's your father.
No, my dad was. But who's my dad named after? I don't know. The name is ruler or soldier, brave soldier or something. I think is what it means.
So I did want to go through some of these stories of yours. So was there anything to that story that you had the first TV in Nashville?
Yeah, just that when we got the television set, I had fallen into this culvert where they were putting in all these water lines.
Okay.
And when I fell into the culvert, Jimmy Ferris, who was a friend of mine, I was yelling, and when I fell, the 500-pound pipe fell on my leg and on my side. And Jimmy was only 9 years old. And Jimmy jumps down in the hole, and he lifted a 500-pound pipe off of my leg. The adrenaline must have been just, I don't know. Yeah, and he lifted the leg, lifted it off, and they went and got the people, and the ambulance came, and the television set came as a result of that because it was printed on the first page of the Nashville, Tennessee newspaper.
Really?
Yeah, and
Get a copy of that.
so we got Well, we have a
You know,
copy
you're-
of
you
that.
know, the date,
Wait. How
Oh,
do you get a
it's-
television set out of a pipe
Well,
falling on your leg?
You know,
No.
it's called bathroom.
No.
And-
What? You got a TV because they...
Nobody, my daddy paid for the television set, but when we were able to get, we got it before they even came on the television, like a month before TV was even on. We were watching Test Patterns and Snow.
I'm confused how the pipe got you the television.
Did your dad feel bad for you?
I think he felt pretty good because we got a settlement from the company that dug the hole.
Oh,
And
all
we-
right. There's the answer. So you got money from the student.
Right.
Okay. Ah,
And we
there
got
we
the
go.
television set, and we got.
All right.
But I have a better story than that about that, though.
Okay.
The set, because we had so many people come to visit me from that, they would come and want to watch television. Even the Test Pattern they liked to watch when it first came on. My dad saw an ad in the newspaper come out for an Admiral television set, and the people that ran the ad said we've gone crazy, you know, and there's a barrel of monkeys down at our store, and the television's only 800 bananas. Well, my dad brought 800 bananas, and they gave him he bought the television set for 800 bananas, and that's a crazy story, but that's a true story.
Well, along the lines of the pipe falling menu, you have a similar story with the dentist and the drill. Can you
Oh,
share
yeah.
that story?
Well, the first time I went to a dentist, the dentist starts looking in my mouth, and when he put his hand in there, I bit it by accident. And when I bit it, part of my finger, he bit my finger and almost took my finger off.
So you accidentally
See that?
bit his finger and then
See that hole in that? That's from when the dentist drilled
on your nail?
my fingernails. He drilled all of them. That's the only one that still is like that.
Okay, wait. So you accidentally bit his finger.
Oh, and he strapped my arms down on the chair,
Yeah.
and I'm screaming, and that dentist is doing all this stuff to me. That's
You
correct.
With a drill, like for your teeth, you drill into your
To fingernails, right?
How many of your fingernails?
Oh, 4 or 5. I don't remember now. I think it was 4. The two thumbs, and that finger, and another
That's pretty
finger.
psychotic of you.
Yeah.
How old were you when this happened?
Whatever you first. How old were you when you went to the dentist for
have
the
no
first
idea.
time? I have no idea. That was quite traumatic, though.
So you wait a minute. If you're that young, why aren't your parents in the room with you?
I have no idea.
Did they care that your fingers got drilled?
Yeah, we went to court for that too. But we lost because one of the jurors said that the dentist had paid them all off. But that he's
Wait,
already.
what? Okay. The jurors paid off.
The jurors were
were
paid off.
by the dentist?
by the
Is that what
dentist.
you're saying?
That's right.
For drilling you in? Okay, so this was like a big case.
So we didn't win. Oh yeah, it was a court case.
Well, I know that, but I'm saying it was...
In court, settled
Yeah.
in court with a jury making a decision.
What city was this in?
Nashville, Tennessee.
And what year was this?
Well, 50, probably 50, something like that. But also, I think one of the big things was I used to be the featured story in the society page of the Tennessean newspaper.
That actually is true.
Yeah. And
I have read it.
the lady used to live down the road from me, and her name was Edith Bell, and Edith used to tell me, "Come on over to the house, Harold, and you play with the typewriter." She had one of those old typewriters.
Right.
So before long, she started writing stories about me, and she called me the Gremlin. So, and then I had won a prize at a fair, and she started writing stories about that, and then about my dog that was, somebody rode off with it while I was in the barber shop getting a haircut, and it was tied up to the front.
So were these true stories that she was writing about you?
Yeah, everything's true. I haven't told a lie yet. That doesn't mean I won't before it's all over. But everything I've told you is the truth.
So how many stories would you say she wrote about you?
No, lots. I don't know how many yet, but I tried to
You're
get
like a local celebrity kind of.
back then, yes.
Huh.
It really was.
It's true. I have read. Yeah, somebody showed that to me. I don't know if it was you or Pat or.
Well, I tried to get copies. We had the Tennessean, the newspaper, has bought from a company I was with before, and I met on the internet. Emailed the lady that worked for the Tennessean newspaper, and she tried to get it, but the archives she couldn't come up with.
Don't they have like a microfiche or anything like that?
I thought she thought they could have it, but she can't even find. But if you look up the lady Edith Battle, she's written some really famous books too.
The lady who wrote the story.
Yeah, that was writing the stories, right?
So you had another story about being tied to a railroad track. Was that also in Nashville?
No, that was in Birmingham, Alabama.
Okay.
We had just moved there, and I joined the scout troop. And what happened was the scoutmaster had forgotten to get some things that they needed for the cookout.
Yeah.
And so he said, well, we're going to need to have, a couple of you stay here because we already had all this other stuff cooking.
Right.
So I stayed there along with two other guys, and these 6 guys came up. We're in a gang called the Thunderbird Gang, who ducktail and everything. And they said, where's the food and all this stuff? And oh, look at the sissy Boy Scout and all this stuff. And they said, let's do this. Let's tie them to the railroad track. So they tied us to the railroad track. And I lost part of my hearing in my left ear when they took our hatchets and actually pretended they were going to chop our heads off.
So they were banging the track, right?
With our hatchets.
So the noise of the hatchet hitting the track.
Yeah, in this ear.
Wait, they were your hatchets?
Yeah,
because you were as scouts. You were
but they had guns that they had actually made that were zip guns. Now these guys, they were still young enough that the guy that was the one that was doing all the name was, I don't even mind telling you, it was Oswald. I don't know.
Just use the first name.
I don't know I can't remember what his first name, but in court.
This was a court case too.
Oh yeah, and he went to.
He was like you were in court a lot when you were.
I was a lot, yeah, I really was, and he was sentenced to. He was just turned not old enough to go to jail, but he was tried because he was young enough. Because when he was in the gang at the time they did it, he was tried as a juvenile. But he was given two years juvenile detention, and was yelling, "I'll kill you when I get out,"
So were those the only times that you went to court when you were a kid, or were there others?
Oh, that's all. I think that was enough.
Yeah, that's enough.
So when you were a little older, you were in the National Guard, the Army National Guard, right?
Yeah, 39th Aviation Battalion. That's what I was in. Or the Louisiana Army National Guard. Louisiana Army National Guard. But I went on active duty. Yeah.
And so you have a story about going to Graceland once. What happened there?
In the middle of when we got our 8 weeks, after 8-week basic training, we get to go home before we were assigned to a new base. And I was going to ended up going to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri from where I was at Fort Chaffee, Arkansas. So when we left there, I got a ride with a fellow that lives in Georgia. And when we went through Nashville, there was this beautiful, we didn't know who the home belonged to. There was this big party going on at this house, this huge house, and they had like a Jeep out in front with a little gate thing going up and down, and this guy happened to have a brand new 1961 Chevelle, one of those bubble top, fancy looking Impalas that they had. And when we saw all these other people driving in with these nice cars, we just went right on. And we didn't get stopped. Now, after we were inside for 15 minutes inside the house, we're getting asked, well, who are you you guys. And we're in uniform. Yeah, so we're in, and we got thrown out though. But that's the only time I was at Graceland. But I went back to Graceland after that.
So you didn't see Elvis in there?
I don't think I would even known him, Stephen, to be honest with you.
Why?
I didn't. I wasn't an Elvis Presley fan.
But he was like the most famous person in the country back then, wasn't he?
No, I don't think so. I don't think it was really to a lot of people. He didn't become really until he started making these. Even though he made songs and he was in a couple of movies.
Yeah.
And I don't think that really people paid a lot of attention to him to the point where they would actually say, "Oh, there's Elvis," you know. But I mean, let's face it, he became a huge entertainer. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I just thought he was at the time too. I thought right around the Jailhouse Rock, Hound Dog era. I thought it was the biggest thing.
Well, when he played in King Creole, you mean he got the movie that he made in New Orleans.
Right.
He was known, but I mean, he really wasn't really that different looking than most kids at that time. I mean, there's a lot of people that looked like him, Frankie Avalon, and all these other kids that were.
You wouldn't be able to recognize.
No, you wouldn't really pay any attention. You know, I wasn't looking for Elvis Presley because I didn't know what it was, so I wasn't looking for
So how do
him.
you know retrospectively that it was racist?
Because that's where we were. They told us where we were.
When they threw you out.
Yeah, when they threw us out. They said, "Who do you know here at this party?" And we said, "We don't know anybody." He said, "You know whose house this is?" And I said, "No." And the other guy, "No, who's it?" Elvis Presley's.
Well, you mentioned that he made that movie King Creole in New Orleans, and you were actually in a movie in the background for a movie called Wrestling. Was that also filmed in New Orleans?
No, it was filmed all over the country, and it was about, I don't remember the lady's first name, Vachon family.
Right. I know Luna the
Vivian, I think Vivian Vachon, I think.
Vachon was the guy.
Yeah, but Vivian Vachon, was about her. And a friend of mine who was a police chief of the city that time in Lafayette, Louisiana, he said, "Harold, why don't you come with us and I'm going to be watching them and we do this." And he said, "You can be in the movie too." So, I'm only in the background for like a 10 seconds or something like that you see me. So if you rent that and see the guy with the beard and the long hair, that's me.
I don't think there's
No, you can see it. You can see it on YouTube if you want to go look.
Oh, is it on there?
Yeah. And but the big thing was after the movie was
after they filmed that part of it,
right,
at that event, we went and had dinner that night. And now we got to go to dinner with all of them. Really nice people, all of them.
All these wrestlers.
Oh yeah, and not only that,
do you remember who they were besides that one lady?
The Vachon family, they were there, and but I don't remember who the other. I really don't know the producer for the movie and the producer and the directors and stuff like that for the movie.
On there, the bald guy.
I don't think so. I think that don't know, Steve. I can't remember offhand the fellow's name, but I probably remember later. But sorry.
Well, as a professional wrestling fan, I'm kind of curious about the pro wrestling scene back then. So when did you start watching pro wrestling? Was it when you were a kid, or was it
at home on television in Nashville, Tennessee? And like Gorgeous George was.
Yeah, but I think he was. I could be
wrong. I think he was in the Northeast.
No, he was on television everywhere in the country. He was the most popular wrestler around at that time.
Around too, like remember Haystack Calhoun?
Oh yeah, saw him several times live.
Where?
In Lafayette, Louisiana.
Okay. How about Thor Kowalski?
Yeah. In fact, that's who was at. That's funny you said that. That's who was at the dinner. I'm trying to remember the name.
Really?
He wrestled no, not in New Orleans. That was in Lafayette.
So
show where.
No, that was in Lafayette. That was in Lafayette too.
So it was around that same time.
Yeah, your uncle and came to do some work for us and help us out during the summer from school.
Right.
And while he
help you out
was,
with the water bed.
yeah, while he was there, I took him to one of the wrestling matches in the Hollywood Blondes, I believe is what their names were. And I don't know whether Freddie Blassie, I think, was also the manager for them. Or,
Okay.
and so the police chief introduced me to them, and he said, "It's my friend Harold," and he said, "Oh, and by the way, because he'd met Dean, your uncle, and Dean had told him he'd done some wrestling in high school, and so what took place was." He said, "Oh, you did some wrestling," and they looked at him and he said, "You think you could do something?" And he said, "I don't know, maybe so." So they started to kind of laugh at him a little bit. Yeah, laugh at him. Yeah. So when he stood up, he was about 6 foot 4, 6 foot 3.
He's a tall guy.
Big guy. And he said, "Yeah, he looked like he could probably do something pretty much if he wanted to." So they didn't make any more jokes. They started. They decided they would go away.
They got intimidated once he stood up.
Yeah, and
so there's another wrestling story from that time too, where Dad, you actually, I guess, got injured at some wrestling show.
no, I don't think so.
Oh no, that's what it was. It's because he didn't go that he got injured, right?
No, he's been to the wrestling matches where, when he was young, one of the wrestlers, Bob Sweetan, threw a chair. Bruiser Bob. He threw a chair, and it missed your dad's head by about an inch as it was thrown into
throwing chairs into the crowd.
No, into the ring. You know how they do that to do the chair over
Dad
the
was
head.
in the ring.
No, he was in the front row though. As we always got the front row or second row.
They were throwing the chairs out of the ring into the crowd.
From the ring, outside the ring, into the ring, and when they were outside of the ring looking for something to hit, throw in the ring to throw and the other wrestler. So
that. He got his tooth knocked out, right?
Well, that was he was staying home cleaning the swimming pool, right?
Yes.
And slid and fell and knocked his tooth out, I think.
Yes. We were playing slip and slide on the liner.
Yeah.
Mom was letting us.
Now you remember. Yeah, that's right.
I never forgot. You think I'm going to forget that? No, we were running, sliding on the liner, and Lisa went, and then I was so anxious to go. I went before she got out of the way, or she fell or something, and then I fell on her and cracked my tooth right on her skull, and that was sticking right up, straight up. So I pulled it out, and it's gone. That's it. I mean, I don't know. What do you say? They put it back in. It didn't take. And
well, that was an interesting dentist story too, though.
Well, I didn't get my fingers drilled over it, so I don't know how fascinating the dentist part of it is.
How long did the tooth get to, we tried to regrow it back in, and it stayed for months.
No, it wasn't months. It didn't last that long. I don't remember, but it turned gray and died, and I think that was like fourth grade or something. 3rd or 4th grade.
But Dad, do you remember
him taking you to those wrestling shows back then? Not really.
Vaguely. I mean, I was young. I was maybe 6 or 7, so I don't know. It's hard. You have a better memory than I do for that stuff, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, well, you brought me to a lot of wrestling shows. That was really cool. We went to a lot of Nitros and Thunders and WWF/E events. We were actually at the very first show when they changed from being WWF to WWE. I believe the date was May 5th, 2002.
I'll take your word on that one, but you're probably right.
Well, no, we showed up to Raw, and, there used to be a 2WF. They just kind of castrated the W, so it was just WW. And it was strange, they didn't there was no real announcement beforehand. It's like, oh, you're at WWE Raw.
Yeah. I've eaten Jim Monteluce used to be, who worked with me in a business. Jim used to be one of these guys that would wear a mask and go in the ring, and he wasn't really anybody well known. He was a jobber, I guess, But we'd go and
know a wrestler.
yeah, but we used to go eat with Kafka and Sika and stuff like that, in Waterbury, Connecticut. Yeah. And then
well, WWF was pretty local back then, right? Like when you moved to Connecticut, like what, 78, 79, something like that. Mm-hmm. So, like when I imagine the pro wrestlers from the WWF were probably around a lot more back then. Like you probably could run into Bob Backlund to let you. Well, yeah. You can probably run for pretty easy now. But
what was the name of the wrestler that recently?
Roddy Piper?
No, the wrestler, that young wrestler that used to do this. He and I used to have the same barber. He used to cut my hair and everything down in Florida. Yeah. He was a good wrestler. I thought he was really good.
What the hell happened to Rey Mysterio?
He still wrestles on indie promotions.
I thought he recently died.
No, somebody died. He was wrestling in the ring.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
He was wrestling some guy. I think it was in Mexico, and he just kind of he has this move called the 619, where the guy falls with his neck onto the middle rope, and then he sends over the other rope and kicks him. When the guy fell with his neck onto the middle rope, it just snapped.
Oh, I thought he had. Okay, but he's a good wrestler. He was a really good wrestler.
Very entertaining. Because when I started watching wrestling again, I watched it when I was a kid. You probably remember and know. But when I started watching again when I was 12 and 13, that was one of the big appeals about WCW, is that they had these cruiserweights like Rey Mysterio and Eddie Guerrero. Remember him, Billy Kidman?
Sure, Eddie Guerrero was a good wrestler too.
Yeah.
But I really had this real great wrestling move that I used to do on this wrestling game years ago. you know about that where you get that headlock and I just seem to wail on the competition.
What is the name of the video game?
It's Tecmo. It's Tecmo's wrestling something or another. I don't remember.
Have you ever played?
But it was the best wrestling game ever, and Steven borrowed it, and we never saw it again.
What happens when you loan something to a 5-year-old?
That's no excuse, son. You need to be responsible when you're 5 years old.
Well, I probably deserve to be wailed on even then.
I think WCW and NWO is probably a better video game. That was probably the best wrestling video game ever.
It was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
You played it too. You don't remember, but we all played that together.
Do you ever remember going into a restaurant in the Chesapeake Bay one day and what you said when you came out of the men's room?
I don't remember things that I was thinking.
Remember vague memories of certain things.
Is it okay to talk about them?
No.
Listen, you are the subject tonight. You're the interviewee. Let's talk about.
I told you I wanted to be the podcast man.
Let's talk about the movie Mahogany. What happened with that?
One night I go to the movie, take your grandmother, his mother, David's mother. We go to see the movie. And I was talking to a friend that was another policeman, not the captain guy, but another policeman that was there by the movie theater. And talked to him for a few minutes. And then about 5 minutes after the movie started, he comes in and he says to me, there's a problem at your store. I said, what's wrong? He says, in the display window of the store, you have a bedroom set up, and there's a big bubble in the middle of the bed that's about 6 feet tall. And they don't know what's going on, but they want you to come there right away. So the fellow that worked for me had put a hose in the bed and turned the water on. Well, it was supposed to be done the next morning. It was a water bed. And right when I got to the front window, the bed exploded.
And
Didn't break the glass, but water through the whole building. That was pretty. It was kind of awesome seeing that whole thing. Like it just blew out. You know? But you don't fill a bed with a water bed with more than 6 feet of water. That's just remember that, because that probably even weighed. The frames are well built. That we manufactured those, by the way. The frames were well built.
Did you build them yourself?
Oh no, I had people that worked for us that made them.
So what made you want to open a waterbed store?
They were terrific. They were a great bed to sleep on.
Yeah.
Was it like a craze at the time?
There was nothing going on at the time. In other words, I was one of the first people to do.
Waterbeds come out. They must have come out in the 60s, right? Around about that time.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So it was like a new thing. Right?
Brand new thing.
Okay.
And I met up with a guy that owned the company. The name of the company was Real People Plastic Company, or Real Plastic People. And he didn't know how to run the business, so I bought all of his inventory that he had, and then we started doing that. And I just started doing the business.
How long did you have that waterbed company for?
Over 7 years.
Yeah, that was right.
Downtown lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But you had a couple locations of it, didn't you?
Oh, yeah, 4. And I became president of the Waterbed Association.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
Dad, do you have any memories of
Waterbed store?
Do I have any memories of it? Sure. I remember a guy shoplifting one time. I was in the back of the store, and
What do you steal from a waterbed store?
well, they had different things there. It wasn't just a waterbed store. There were accessories for things at the time that were popular. And that being said, so one of the guys was reaching around to steal one of these accessories. He thought it was damn cool, and I remember that. And he reached around. I'm sitting right there. I'm probably 9 or 8 or something. And I went and told you right away. And then you went and got the guy and got the stuff off of him, kicked him out. I think he gave me a couple of dollars or something. told me what a great job I was doing.
Oh, you know, I've got a really interesting story.
Because that one sucked.
While he was, while we had the store, his mother was running a bookstore next door to our store. In other words, so Dave's mom was next door, and I was in the other store. And all of a sudden, one day, I'm talking to Robbie, his mother, and all of a sudden, David got screaming and hollering, and his blood all over his face from here down, and he's hollering, and I'm almost passed out, but his mother goes over to him, grabs him. That's ketchup. You'd have to be there to appreciate that story. That wasn't a great story either, was it? No, it was when he squeezed the ketchup out of the tube.
I busted a pack of ketchup open into my face by accident. Yes, as a child, that's what I want to do.
No,
is throw burning, acidic,
I don't know if like you were, pretending like putting ketchup on your forehead.
Why would I do that? No.
Because you do it today.
What? I put ketchup. Yeah, I'm always putting ketchup on my face.
Well, when you do your Halloween, you do all kinds of stuff like that.
None of it involves ketchup, but sure. I don't frequently put ketchup anywhere except on my food these days.
Well, that might be a lower price instead of buying those packages of that red blood stuff to try and use. So, what do you think?
So, I don't know if you want to talk about any of these. You told me that you didn't before, but you've met a lot of celebrities or have a lot of interactions with a lot of celebrities over the years. Just wondering if you want to talk about any of those.
Well, I can't really because there's personal things involved in it.
Yeah. You can't just like say like this
No, because
for this movie star.
I don't guess there's anything wrong with telling you I got Eric Clapton's pig. How to get Eric Clapton's pig? Okay, well, I guess I can't tell you about Eric Clapton's pig, how it got to where it got to.
If you can't say something, that's fine. But what would you like to say about Eric Clapton's pig?
I would rather talk about. I do like Eric Clapton. I think he's great. Okay.
I think he's okay.
Now that he's okay and straight.
You ever hear that?
You ever hear that song from The Color of Money? It's in the way that you use it. You ever hear that song?
Yeah, I've heard it too. Oh.
What would you like to say about Eric Clapton?
You had that picture for many years.
I had it for many years. Well, I can tell you that he loved to dance to Eric Clapton's music.
Really?
Yes. And I tell you that he used to make up his bed in his own house that we built for him outside. And he'd work for 2 hours sometimes. So it was a pig in a real blanket. And during the wintertime, he liked to make his bed up himself. And he has his own little, the house is still, I still have the house, even though the pig has now passed away. But he, one of the most awesome pets I've ever owned.
Yeah. So you've had some other interactions with different celebrities over the years. You don't want to talk about that.
Which one, for example?
Well, you sold your silverware to one celebrity, right?
No, you gotta cut that out. No, because my wife is not gonna like that one at all. You cut that out right now. No. No, we're not going to.
Were you on an airplane once that was going down or something, and there was some celebrity on the plane, flying the plane?
No, the celebrity wasn't flying the plane. It was, you know what that was about. It was about, we were flying out of Newark, and the pilot was a hotshot, one of the young pilots, and he came and sat with all of us that were even riding on the plane because because the plane had a mechanical problem, and he kept telling us, well, we'll be in Hartford, it only takes 8 minutes to get there from here, and so don't be concerned about that. So they took a few minutes boarding because Al Sharpton and Jesse Jackson were on the flight too. So what happens is when we go to take off, the pilot in front, the plane in front of us, was delayed for some reason. So the pilot's saying, well, folks, we're going to still make these connections. Don't worry about it. And so as soon as the other plane took off, it looks like he jumped the gun and he takes off faster than he should. So we got caught in the air of the plane in turbulence in front of us. And the plane was doing a roll like over almost all the way over, and people started to scream, and Jesse Jackson says, we better pray, folks. And the pilot brought the plane, came back around. That was really close. We almost didn't make it, that's for sure. But the worst one of all was when I was in a plane coming out of Phoenix, Arizona, and there was a tornado in Houston. And we dropped from 20-something thousand feet down to 11,000 feet, and we didn't.
Expected you that high up?
Oh yeah,
Well,
yeah. So the pilot said, "We have some bad weather ahead of us, folks, but we can make it through." And all of a sudden, everything goes ding ding, and the compartments are open, and the masks are coming down, and the plane is shaking, and this plane is going down. I don't know how it recovered, other than I believe God made the plane make it.
That has to be scary at the time, though.
Oh, yeah. Well, I've had other incidents where we've been lost even over a lake in a military plane. And
you were lost over a lake?
Lake, because the Omni, they have what they call an Omni system, that back in those days, it would tell you, you could tell where you were with the plane, basically if you were getting stronger to the airport or weaker. Okay. And part of this system, electronics broke on the plane. And so the Omni was out because of a bad storm in New Orleans.
Closest is Lake
came up all of a
Pontchartrain
sudden.
then,
Lake
right?
Pontchartrain, yeah.
That's the only way it makes sense.
Well,
you know,
this is not a little lake. It's 27 miles long and 24 miles the other way. And in fact, an Eastern Airlines has gone down even in that lake, once before. But what happened with us is that we finally got a clearing, and the plane was actually, because of the wind, it was what's called an L-20 Beaver, an Otter, I'm sorry. And the Otter was going actually backwards as we're supposed to be going forward. The plane couldn't go forward. We were just standing still almost in the air, a little bit going backwards even. But that's not really, it's hard to express and explain that on a podcast, how that.
Well, I mean, any experience like that, it's hard to convey the terror or whatever, how you feel at the moment. But I
actually wasn't scared. It's funny, you don't get scareder about things until you get older. Yeah, it's like, you just say, we're going to make it. And you always believe you're going to make it.
So what other crazy stories would you like to tell us while you're on the podcast? Because you lived an interesting life. You ever seen the movie Forrest Gump?
Yeah, but I know what's in the box of chocolates because I read what's on the inside of it.
But I mean, you
In a similar kind of fashion.
you led a very interesting life, and lived those same years too.
And if I could tell you the real interesting stories, it would really be interesting.
Well, why don't you?
No, they can't be told.
Well, what's the craziest thing that ever happened to you that you can't talk about on the show?
I think the funniest thing that ever happened was my dad's company car. Before I started having race cars to race.
Yeah, because you drag raced.
Yeah.
What happened was he had a Chevrolet that I took, and I had the exhaust system. We welded on it 2.5-inch pipe with caps that would unscrew so that I could go run stock classes but have open exhaust so I could run faster.
Right.
And so one day
my dad is driving his company car on the highway, and all of a sudden it goes and he goes to the car dealer with it, and then he says, well, what kind of junk is this, man, y'all are making? Look at my car underneath. And I said, oh, that's the car they've been talking about that's been running at the drag strip that's winning in D stock. And he says, that's your company car, isn't it? And so I was racing my dad's car, so I didn't get to race it anymore after that.
Yeah, I can imagine you're happy about that.
No, well, and then he did let me drive it one more time after that, though.
Yeah.
And I was told never to go past the certain mile marker into town. Don't go any further than so many miles to the county or parish line, it's called in Louisiana. That's where I was restricted to go with the car. So I went past that. And so I ended up being in New Orleans with the transmission broken, and the only thing I could do is go in reverse. And I went 9 miles backwards to get to where I needed to be. And when I went through City Park in New Orleans, the park ranger guy, he stops me and says, what are you doing? I said, I got to get back to the other side of the park because if my dad's going to really give me a problem if I'm not at the other side. The guy says, you pull that car over there and just park it right now and go call your dad. So I said, well, it's overheated and I got to get some water in it. And he says, well, you don't go anywhere with it. So after he left, I put the water in, took the hubcaps off, put water in the radiator.
What do the hubcaps have to do with anything?
So we could put water in the radiator. That's all I had to put. I took the radiator.
Where are you getting okay.
Got the water out of the pond in the park.
All right.
So got the car up, started running again, backed up, and he caught me again. But this time when he caught me where he lived by the house in the park. And his wife came out and said, "What's the matter?" And he told her, and he said, "Didn't the boy tell you that he had to get over to the other side? You take your car, you give him a light, and you let him drive the car and backwards and get it over there." And so the wife is the one that saved us that night. So we got to the back side of the park. But that was you'd have to be there to really have a fun time with that. That was a great night.
I have a question. If I can. I would like to hear the story about. There was some story you told me about how you ended up. You took a car. I think you went to California or Las Vegas or something, and then by the time you got back with it, you had no. You can't. Why can't you talk about that? Oh, for God's sakes! All right. What was an interesting story? We can't discuss that one? Okay.
Well, here's my question for you. Do you ever miss New Orleans?
No.
You never missed New Orleans? Because you brought me there. I'd never been there before in my life before 2 years ago. It was 2009, I think. And we went there, and I had a great time. I thought it was a very unique, interesting city.
The people there are really cool. It's very laid back. But there's nowhere else on Earth like it. So, I mean, I found it very interesting. But why
don't you miss it?
I mean, that's where you grew up, right?
I really consider Connecticut my home. I love Connecticut. I think it's a great place to be and live. I like it here.
Well, that makes one of us.
I'll say Connecticut is pretty. I noticed that after living in Indiana for so long. It's everything in there is very flat, uneven, and they call it the Rust Belt for a reason. The cities are all bad. So I didn't really like that. Plus, another thing that's good about Connecticut too is how close everything is.
That's right.
A half an hour in any direction from Colchester is a different city with something else to offer. Out in Indiana, if I didn't like South Bend, it took me hours to go somewhere else. Like Kalamazoo or Indianapolis or Chicago.
I didn't care for New Orleans because back then the thing that everybody did was drink.
Well, yeah, that's what they do now. It's a drinking city.
Yeah, it is, and I'm not. I got away from that kind of life.
But there's other things there too. I mean, you can go to Cafe Du Monde and get some beignets, and I don't know, go down to Jackson Square and listen to some music or something. There's different things you can do.
I can do all of that where I live in Florida, but I don't even like Florida.
Go to the Superdome, to the Saints.
Yeah.
The Saints are doing terrible so far.
I really don't pay attention to them.
You don't watch sports?
Not really, not anymore.
No.
Oh, I'm a YouTuber. I really am. That's what I do. And I like it. Hey, if it's good enough for George Bush, he does it every day. That's what he does every day.
That's what quantifies you. What's a good thing to do is what is good for George Bush.
If George Bush can do it, I can do it.
HW or W?
The younger one that was.
You don't.
You never voted for him or anything, right?
Beg pardon?
You never voted for him or anything, right?
I got a letter from him.
Yeah. I thought that was from his father.
That's right, it was his father. That's correct. It is his father.
Well, speaking of politics,
It was the whole Al Gore thing. I'd like to hear about Al Gore and playing football.
you said that Al Gore called you once, and you called him.
Al Gore called me?
Maybe you called him.
Al Gore?
Yeah.
I don't remember anything about an Al Gore thing ever.
The whole recount thing. You wrote a letter. Or...
No, that was to Bush. That was not. That was George Bush the son.
No, there was Al Gore.
I remember what you're talking about.
Yeah. You said Al Gore called you, and he said he had to go because his family was there. Yeah.
No, the letter I got is from George Bush.
Not the letter. I'm talking about the phone call.
Why would it be from his father? His father didn't run against them.
I don't know what the letter's about, but it was from his father.
Who ran for president? George Bush, the son.
And Al Gore
ran against.
Here, can I tell you what happened? You have a letter from George H.W. Bush from when he was president back in the late 80s.
Oh, that's something totally different. That had nothing to do with
in
this.
2000, I guess you saw some kind of something happen during the because you live in Miami-Dade County, right?
No.
Okay, well, you live in West Palm County. You saw some things that were happening during the election or something, and then you contacted Al Gore, and you actually were able to speak with him on the phone.
First of all, I wasn't in favor of Al Gore winning any election to begin with. All right. No. No. Why would I get a letter from George Bush if it was Al Gore? Then I'm. No, it's from George Bush. Oh, we'll have to go home and get that so you can. I'll put that on YouTube so you can see it. All right.
Letter on YouTube.
Why not?
It's a boring video.
All the letters said from George Bush, he was upset about the situation with the recount and everything on the election, but he really wasn't, because he already knew he was going to win, because Al Gore knew he was going to not. They were not going to win against him because the machines were all fixed to begin with. Everybody's looking at the chads that are on the ballots, but it didn't have anything to do with that. It was the actual microprocessing chips and everything in the machines they were using. And when they went to do the recount on the election, they couldn't use the machine to recount, so they never counted all the ballots again, because they didn't know whether it would show the Democrats in that particular machine or the Republicans were going to win on that recount.
Well, my perspective about that election is, people talk about the Chads, people like to blame Ralph Nader.
Ralph Nader for what?
Democrats.
Why would they blame Ralph Nader?
If he hadn't run, everyone who would have voted for Ralph Nader supposedly would have all voted for him.
Did anybody vote for Ralph Nader?
Yes, he got like 3% of the vote in that election. But here, can I say my perspective? Al Gore won that election. He got 500,000.
Did you vote for? You weren't old enough to vote then, right?
Can I say my perspective on the election?
Well, but after you answer my question.
I voted for Ralph Nader in 2004. Part of the reason why is because of what I'm trying to get to. The Electoral College is something that screws up the elections. In 2000, Al Gore actually won that election. He got 500,000 more votes than George W. Bush did. But because of the Electoral College, Bush supposedly, he didn't even really do that, but he supposedly won Florida by 537 votes. And those Electoral College votes went to Bush, which gave him the election. But my whole perspective is, after that, especially, why didn't we get rid of the Electoral College? We still have it today. It's very anachronistic. It's going back to like...
Because people are apathetic, son.
Yeah, but after that specifically, too.
Because people are apathetic, son.
I don't think that's why. I think it's because the political parties don't benefit from it. Because, for example, Ross Perot got like almost 20% of the vote in 1992, but he got no Electoral College votes because of the way that works. So, you can have a very popular third-party candidate,
yeah,
but they're, the way that
serves the existing parties well to keep it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a duopoly. So, I guess I'm answering my own question, but I'm just saying that, we really should get rid of things like that, like Electoral College.
Not going to happen.
Yeah. Maybe someday.
Because people are apathetic, son. They're not going to rise up and do what it takes to necessitate change.
Papa, would you say that anything big has ever changed during your life politically? Has there ever been any kind of popular uproar over something that changed situations for the better or the worse?
First of all, personally, I don't believe we really have control anyway.
Right.
So if you believe that we're voting and we're making everything happen, I don't believe that's really happening.
Okay.
Personally, that's my own.
But
That's not really the question, though. Do you think that there has ever been a popular movement to change something and it has been effective in your lifetime?
Oh, yeah,
The Illuminati, I believe, absolutely.
that's kind of the opposite of what I'm saying.
I know, but that's exactly what I'm saying, though.
Okay.
Wouldn't you say like maybe the stuff in the 60s?
Yeah, what about the anti-war movement against Vietnam, and actually against Iraq,
not
too.
just that. I was talking about more race stuff, but yeah.
Oh, yeah, civil rights movement.
Yes.
Yeah,
But
but
who do you think
controls all those things? Who makes the
Controls the civil rights movement?
No. Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Oh, who does? The Illuminati?
Who knows? In other words, when we have these stories that come out and push...
Here's why I think that there are popular movements that get co-opted by...
Well, why don't you let me finish my statement?
Well, you don't let me finish.
Well, but what I have to say might be important too.
Okay.
All right. I believe that truthfully, we have all these things that are fed to us over the media that are like people like you that want to try and stop us from talking, and you're going to tell us what you want to say, and instead of letting us say what we want to say.
How dare you, son? How dare you interview him?
So, but the truth is that we have things that are being fed to us every day by the media, and where do those things come from? They come from people like who owns the biggest media company in the world?
There are 5 media companies.
And who's one of the big ones? And who owns that company, or who controls?
Well, Rupert Murdoch used to. I don't know if he still does.
Yeah, he's getting weaker. He's going down somewhat.
So you think once Rupert Murdoch
he's
bites,
only worth $20 billion or something.
once he bites the dust, everything's going to clear up?
No,
Okay.
Warren Buffett, he's nobody.
He's not nobody.
Yeah, but he also has media too. You know?
I agree with you that the media is a problem. There are only 5 companies. Sometimes people say 6, but Viacom and CBS are actually both controlled through national.
There's actually 5 companies that control
Pretty much all of television. But
So where do you form your opinions from? Where do you get your opinions from?
other, like, there's, you know, all the foreign media sources, stuff like that, you know.
That's what I do too, yeah.
But
Here's my perspective on popular movements. I think that people do genuinely band together at times and, you know, protest things and, you know, try to change things effectively, but they get co-opted by the political parties usually.
You want me to really get in depth about this? And I'll tell you what I believe.
You're not allowed to have
No,
an
I'm going
opinion.
to tell you what I... We have 80,000 Russians. We have 80,000 Russians that have
Why
moved
would
to
you
this
think this would be
country.
any different than any other time?
Right. And when you have 80,000 Russians that are sitting all around this country that speak English better than you and I do, that now, wait a minute, let me explain this to you. Why don't you do it this way? Why don't you look and see what happens in the very near future with how the Russians actually are the biggest criminal element in the world today.
okay,
Do you doubt that?
I know
The Russian mafia is a serious problem for the world.
You don't think Putin has any power, in other words, in what's being said in the media?
We didn't
anyway?
say that at all. Why are you putting words in his mouth?
What I'm trying to get to is that what I'm trying
You're
to...
doing a very good Bill O'Reilly, actually, because you're not letting me talk
And
and
you're telling me what my position is.
Oh, let's just do it live, Steve.
Go ahead, have your turn.
What I was trying to say is I think that the political parties co-opt these popular movements. You can see it repeatedly. Like with the anti-war movement, people protesting against Iraq. Originally, it was just people that were upset about the war because both of the parties started the war, Democrats and the Republicans. And you can find, if you want to search YouTube, see Hillary Clinton's speech about how she was all in favor of the war. But what happens is when something becomes popular, and there's people who, you know, whose votes you can manipulate, then you start showing up there. So I remember, you know, going to anti-war protests, and then slowly over time, these local Democratic politicians start showing up, and, you know, congressmen doing stuff, and then it, you know, it gains the momentum, and it gets co-opted. And eventually, okay, well, the Iraq war will end, but we'll expand drone warfare, or stuff like that. You know, it gets kind of manipulated. And you can see that with, you know, the Tea Party movement. That's what happened with them. That routed people, you know, upset about certain issues, and then it got kind of co-opted by the Koch brothers. That happened with people in Occupy Wall Street who were upset about the bailout, and then, you know, George Soros and whoever else kind of took charge of that. happens repeatedly.
Have you ever been on a political action committee? You know, ever? I have. Have you ever brought senators and Congress people and told them, hey, let me tell you something. If you don't vote this way, you're going to be out of office next time. And have you ever been where they come and get money from your organization, and because they will do what you want them to do when you pay them money, they will actually go and vote for the things that you want the way you want them done?
No.
I've been on the political action committee.
Well, that's not news,
that.
Dad. I mean, that's common knowledge.
What I'm trying to say is that the truth is that we're manipulated by all these lobbyists and by all these things that go on constantly. Where do the lobbyists come from?
It's all about money, Dad.
It's all about money, Stephen. And who controls the money?
Illuminati.
Illuminati. That's correct. Oh, well, who owns the central banks? The Illuminati.
So, well, I don't know because we're not allowed to audit them because it would destroy the economy.
That's correct. Have you ever been in Fort Knox to see how much gold we've got out there?
No, have you?
No. But we should have some gold there. We're supposed to.
Money isn't backed by gold anyway.
I know.
It's backed by public debt. Public debt. You all own.
It's backed by in God we trust. That's what it says on the piece of paper.
Right. But it also says Federal Reserve now.
Yeah, and who owns the Federal Reserve?
Again, we're not able to audit.
But here, okay, so let's get more.
Wow, come on, yeah.
Well, I want to ask you about the election that we're going to have. Because you're a big Trump supporter. I want to know why you're a big Trump supporter.
He's going to quit. I already know that.
Okay. Well, first of all, why are you a big Donald Trump supporter?
Maybe because he gave me, he didn't personally give it to me, but I got the railings off of the Trump building and I had them around my jacuzzi that you went in Florida. All those railings that were around.
Wait.
Were there railings on a jacuzzi?
No. What are you talking about?
All the,
Along there,
the first house
pig.
you came.
Huh?
The hot water heater broke and you went in the jacuzzi and took a shower.
Again, like I was a child, so it's very hard to remember some of these things. Were there golden railings on the jacuzzi?
I honestly don't remember any railings, but
around the outside of the whole deck, the whole concrete thing at the house.
Okay, so
Donald Trump's railings
raises so many.
holding in Eric Clapton's
No, because
pig.
Donald Trump is in our city. He
Got it.
has a lot of businesses, Stephen.
Okay, so
And what he wants to get done are done not necessarily the way he wants them done, but they're done in a way that it makes West Palm Beach and Palm Beach thrive better than other places. And he knows what he's doing. He's not a stupid man. He owns 500 and he's involved with running of 550 companies, so he knows how to delegate authority to people and have people do things and get them done. That's why I'm in favor of him.
I hear this a lot. Like,
people want Congress to get things done, supposedly, whatever. But like, what are the things that are supposed to be getting done? You know? So, why do you think that he?
I think the big thing is we need a strong military.
okay.
The big thing, and I think he would have a strong military.
Military in the world, right? We have a bigger military than like the next 20 countries.
He wants a strong military where China doesn't make our components and makes our major part of our aircraft now. He wants these things brought home. No, it's having the design and the ingenuity be here in our country, because they're trying to steal every single thing that we have right now, the Chinese, and you know that through everything that you hear, and it's a fact. I don't think that would happen if Trump was president. I think he'd be a good president.
I actually would
say Trump's kind of dovish compared to some other ones. Because have you watched the debate?
Yeah, it goes all the way.
He has talked about like making friends with Putin. Like, we could do business together or whatever. It's Lindsey Graham.
It's better to talk to people than to not talk to people.
No, I completely agree with that. But I'm saying, if you're saying we need a strong military, wouldn't you be more in favor of like the Lindsey Graham or something like that?
Are you kidding?
Or like Carly she was very upset. Or Marco
She
Rubio.
couldn't even run the HP company. Why would I want her to run our country?
Was Marco
Rubio from Florida.
No, but his family
right?
lies about when they came from Cuba. So I don't want a lying family being in control.
Oh, good luck.
I don't think Donald Trump is a
Oh,
liar.
yeah, Donald Trump's the most honest man on
I don't
earth. Are
think-
you
I-
insane?
In his books that he even writes, he tells you how
That
crooked he
guy,
is.
yeah, exactly.
I mean, at least he's honest enough
He's honest
to tell
about
us.
being honest about how he used to lie in the past, so that's all right.
It's hard to explain, but the truth is that
He has a phrase.
There's this documentary about Donald Trump from like 25 years ago, and there's a phrase in it called truthful hyperbole,
Hmm.
where like
That's
he's
right.
not really lying, but he's greatly embellishing things.
Right.
I've never been exposed to that in my life.
I'm sorry, I have to excuse myself
All right.
again for a minute. I'm sorry.
But Dad, you don't really follow the elections, right?
No. I'm totally cut off from the world intentionally because I don't care anymore. I'm very jaded.
Was there ever a political candidate who you were enthusiastic
Perot, Ross Perot.
Why did you like Ross?
Because I thought he ran X amount of companies and made X amount of dollars and knew what the hell he was doing as compared to the people that were running against him. Jerry Brown, I think, was running in that election too, if I'm not mistaken.
The governor of California.
Yeah.
So wouldn't Donald Trump be kind of the same thing as Ross
I
Perot?
don't know. Donald Trump. I can't. I don't know if I can vote for somebody who was in a wrestling ring comparing whether his hair was real against Vince McMahon's hair. I don't really know if that's the guy I want for president, who's on camera pulling back his hair to show he's got a real. I don't know. There's just something maybe inherently wrong with that kind of person being in charge of the our atomic arsenal. You know.
Well, my friend was saying, it kind of represents how our country has jumped the shark,
Yeah, a while ago.
Well, yeah, but if Donald Trump does become our next president, that shows
it's-
how insane the country is.
Yeah, I completely agree with whatever friend said that is right on the money. It's insane.
But I do have to say, I think that Trump sold that you're fired from something.
Maybe when they were rehearsing the whole pulling back the wig thing to see who had the,
Well, they're friends. Maybe he loaned it to him or something. Or maybe he sold it to him.
maybe that would be more in line with Vince McMahon's.
Well, they were
modus
always
operandi.
friends. A couple of WrestleManias were at the. I think like WrestleMania 4 and 5 were at some Trump casino in Atlantic City. Or
Well,
something.
who do you? Okay, I don't really even know who's running, and I personally don't care because it doesn't make a difference. Whatever jackass they put in there is not going to be able to fix anything. So,
Right.
Who are you?
So.
Are you pro Trump? I can't imagine that you are, son.
Not really. I do think he is more dovish compared. You should watch these debates.
What's dovish? Is that like George W? Is that what you're?
Dovish?
Dovish?
As opposed to hawkish.
I don't know what those terms mean.
It means that he's less militaristic than some other candidates.
Okay. He's more peaceful. Is that what you're saying?
If you watch the debates, they're trying to ramp up fear against all these countries, and
All right.
and he's saying, well, we should try to make peace with Russia. We should talk to Russia and stuff like that.
Why are we fighting Russia again?
Yes, apparently.
Why are we fighting Russia? I thought we were all done with that.
I don't know.
What's the problem with Russia now? What are they doing
There
wrong?
was a revolution in Ukraine where, so first of all, NATO, you know what NATO is?
Yeah.
It's been expanding eastward since the end of the Cold War. Like Poland joined, like the Warsaw Pact countries have been joining NATO. So there was a revolution in Ukraine where the people deposed the president who was friends with Russia. And now there's kind of like, there was a civil war in Russia, or in Ukraine, I mean, where in eastern Ukraine there are ethnic Russians and who are, politically aligned with Putin, and then in western Ukraine there are ethnic Ukrainians who...
You're losing me. Okay. Just give me like the abridged version, the Cliff Note version.
It's a geopolitical thing where NATO is expanding around Russia.
Yeah.
And the more they push back, it's like, look at Putin, he's being a bully for trying to take over Ukraine or whatever. But like Ukraine was aligned with them originally. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So Russia's bad, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Our people think Russia's bad.
So
Russia is bad.
We heard your view on it already.
Would you like to hear
They're all criminals.
a relative of ours who's
No.
who's been an oil executive for years knows about it? I've got what he just wrote on Facebook, what he just wrote.
No, I don't care.
Okay.
I don't even pay attention to any of this stuff because none of this shit makes a difference in the end anyway. It's all the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't
Same
think
news,
Russia's-
different
I don't
names.
think Russia's good. Don't get me wrong. I just think that sometimes we get, you get all afraid of some
There's
countries.
fear mongering going on by these candidates. Is that it? Okay.
So my point was in the if you watch the debates, Trump will say, we should talk to Russia or whatever, and then the other candidates will like freak out, like, no, we can't talk to Russia. Like Carly Fiorina was one, Marco Rubio. These other people are much more hawkish than Trump is.
Where does the term hawkish come from?
Like a hawk is a bird of prey.
It's a bird of prey. Okay.
Yeah.
The dove is a bird of peace.
Yeah.
Why are we so obsessed with birds in our political system?
But the
Food
point
for
is,
thought, Steve.
But yeah, you were asking me who I like. So
Yeah.
I was a big Ron Paul fan back in 2008.
Oh, is he still running?
No, his son is running instead.
Can you? Thank you.
His son is running, who I don't think is. I think that he's trying to capitalize on his father's legacy by vaguely adopting some of the same stances, but he's not really embracing it.
Why isn't Ron Paul running himself? Is he? It's done.
Almost 80 years old now.
Yeah. Okay.
well,
Blame the guy.
it's like Donald Trump said, he's only got 1% of the vote.
That's not true. That's
Popularity,
true.
it's
That's
true.
the truthful hyperbole, because there was one poll where he got 1% of the vote. Everything else he got more than that.
But
So there you go. Donald Trump's a liar.
He just embellishes
Yeah.
or
Leaves out.
is selective.
Yeah, selective. Selective truth.
Yeah.
Nothing new. He's a good. Be a perfect politician then.
Yeah. So there's another candidate this year called named Bernie Sanders. He's a independent senator.
socialist.
He's an independent senator from Vermont, and he is a democratic socialist. He calls himself that. And doesn't shy away from
He's a
that.
European socialist.
Yep. So he caucuses with the Democrats. He's an independent senator, and he's running against Hillary Clinton, because Hillary Clinton is kind of the front-runner's coordinated candidate again.
Yeah.
But he's very popular with the youth. I think he'd be a better alternative than Hillary Clinton. I'd say that.
Whatever. It won't make a difference. Whoever they put in there will be all the same. Nothing's going to change dramatically either way. It never does. The biggest thing I think is Barack Obama with the health thing, the Health Care Act. I think was probably one of the bigger changes I've seen in a while.
Yeah.
Not that even worked out the way it was supposed to.
Well, it's difficult because
subsidized health care.
People say stuff before they get elected, and then they do something different when they do.
Well, because they get in there and see how it really is.
Right.
It's not the way they thought it was.
Read my lips, no new taxes.
Yeah. Well, we heard that.
So, like, Bernie Sanders will say things like, we need single-payer health care, which, would be cool, I guess, but will it really happen if he gets elected? I don't know.
None of the majority of these things never happen, so
Yeah.
it's all just, it's marketing, son. You should know.
Do you know anybody personally that has the new health insurance plan, what they call Obamacare, but which is not really that? All right. We have it. My wife has it. I think it's a great product.
It's subsidized health. Mine's subsidized.
However, the sad part is
You have to
that
have it.
Donald Trump, even though I like him, he wants to get rid of it.
Right.
And I think a lot of the people want to get rid of it, but at the same time, for people, I think it's a great opportunity to have health care that can't buy insurance. There are a lot of people that can't get it. And I think that, personally, I think it's a great plan.
Under that whole thing, it's, you probably know more about it than I do, but all I know, because I don't really give a crap about half of this stuff, is that I had to buy a different kind of health insurance.
Right.
And I had to give them all of my income information and so on. And then my health insurance became subsidized, so I ended up getting more for less money.
That's right, and my wife
That's
is
the way
too.
it worked out for me. I mean, it's not that I got free health insurance or anything like that. I wish that I had, of
And
course.
I don't know
but
if you know anybody else that has it, but I don't know anybody that really has it that went and got it the right way and did it is really got a problem with it. And they talk about it every day, that it's no good, that it's...
Well, for some
not
people, they got, the people who have higher incomes ended up having less coverage for more money.
Guess what? They got the money to pay for it.
That makes it right?
That makes it right.
That does not make it right.
I believe it does.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
A lot of people didn't have money not because they worked real hard for it, though. There's some people that I know that have worked real hard for it and deserve what they get. But there's a lot of people that just it's handed to them from generation to generation, the dollars that they get, and they don't do the right things with it, and they end up with nothing anyway. But at the same time, sometimes they're very successful. And so if a person has $20 billion, $5 billion, $100 million, $50 million, I don't mind them paying more for their health care insurance plan than a person that doesn't have that much, because it's the people that are working for them are the people that making that person be able to have more money anyway. And if
Okay.
if you work and make $100,000 or $50,000 a year, and you can't afford to buy the same things if you have a family that a person that has $20 million has, and if that person has that because they bought a business or made a business or got an inherited business, I think that it is better that people do have a chance to have health care for a lower price if they don't earn as much money and they're covered.
Nobody's going to say it's a bad idea that people can get health insurance for a lower cost.
But they do. Even Donald Trump does, to be honest.
To get health insurance for a lower cost is a bad thing.
Yeah, they want the insurance companies to go get back all of the money again and be in total control of it, which they're not right now.
They're still getting the same amount of money. They're getting even
actually
more
money. They get more money.
So why is it bad for that? That makes no sense.
Yeah, but you'd have to understand the way that the money's given to them.
Yeah, it's borrowed from China.
Well, would you
Wow,
be in
it's
favor?
a political discussion.
Would I be in favor of what?
Would you be in favor of single-payer health care?
Explain to me what you think single-payer health care is.
It means you have a graduated tax system where higher income earners pay more in taxes than people who are poorer, and then everyone, for the taxes that they pay, have their health care paid for already.
I think I'd go for that.
Okay. So why do you not like Bernie Sanders?
Because we're going to get all this money that he's talking about.
Tax billionaires.
How much?
A lot, which is what you just said was a great
I know
idea.
no, that's a good idea, but the point is, where's he going to get? Do you know how much money that we're talking about?
I don't know the figures for how much money would be needed.
$14 trillion.
Why is it for a single-payer healthcare system?
For what you're talking about, yes.
How do you know it's $14 trillion?
From reading articles and seeing what it would cost.
Okay. Well, okay. So, I mean,
Where are you gonna
That's
get
impossible,
$14
Dad. It's not
trillion?
$14 trillion.
The entire national debt is $18 trillion.
Yeah, that's impossible. That number's not right.
But I mean, I don't know. It's just generally, you don't have a problem with taxing billionaires more money than average people to get things like that done.
No, I'm totally in favor of that.
okay.
So why don't you like?
That's why Donald Trump said on what he had said for people to pay income taxes. I'm not against that at all. Like I know people in my own family that make a good living, they wouldn't pay any income tax.
Why do you...
Not like Bernie Sanders.
Number one, I already
gave you the first reason. He's too old to be the president of the United States.
Okay,
So you think there should be?
Because when he would be elected, if you were elected president, how old will he be if he was elected president? 76?
So you think that there should be a age limit for the president?
I think he's too old to be president of the United States. I think you need a younger person.
And we don't know who he would have for his
running mate.
any of them would have a running mate.
That's right. But I know at least I have Donald Trump, who's younger by at least.
Donald Trump
I can't even imagine.
who we'd have for the secretaries.
Vince McMahon.
Well, I know. I
Any
already.
administration ever.
Vince McMahon.
The guy from Shark,
That's who.
from on,
Yeah.
the guy from Sharks even. I said he would. Mike, whatever, what Cuban?
Mark Cuban.
Yeah, he's already said that he would be his running mate if he wanted.
That's
to
great.
be.
Let's get some TV host, whatever, to
No,
run the
he's-
country.
No, this guy's a brilliant man.
Whatever, man.
Okay, so,
Sure.
Bernie
So-
Sanders is
74. He would be 75.
75 when he took office.
Maybe
75.
76.
No, he'd be 75.
What's the date of birth?
September 8th, 1941. So he turned 75 next September.
I have to go by. I'm 72. I couldn't be president.
So you think there should be an age limit for the?
I do. I think he
So
shouldn't be
what
that.
would the age limit be?
69.
Ridiculous.
69. Yeah.
So you think
71 would be much better when he be president.
So you think you cannot take office after you're 70 years old?
I know that I'm not as sharp
good
as I was
idea.
at 70. That's for sure.
Okay.
And I'm 72.
Um,
All right, so just based on the guy's age alone, you don't want him to be president. That's
There are valid reasons for that, Stephen.
well, I suppose, but I mean, is that the only reason?
You want to give the most powerful position in the world to somebody whose mental faculties is. All right.
If that's the only reason why he doesn't like break him.
That's the primary reason. I told you that from the very first day when he announced that he was going to run, and I knew he was running. I said he's too old.
okay. So, but if he was,
I don't even want to pay attention to what he's talking about because I think he's too old. I
Don't
don't
want him to be president.
Okay, so
I'm not going to pay. I'm not going to vote for somebody that's going to be too old to be president.
But you're,
And he hasn't had any. What has he got? What has he got for a track record that proves any kind of track record to you? What have you seen that's shown you that he really can get things done?
well, that's the thing, is if you have an outsider's perspective, I think that the powers that be work against you to make sure that you don't get things passed.
So why would I want to have him be president then?
To disrupt the order that exists, like to change things.
Okay, well,
In my opinion, I don't think he's the right
person.
Just based on age, and I don't want a total socialistic
type of government in our country. It's already gone enough that way to begin with. I'm not opposed to. I like to have, but I believe in
Wait, hold on.
capitalism.
Hold on. You were just saying that the healthcare thing wasn't enough that way. So, how has it gone too far?
Let's put it this way: if Donald Trump was elected, in my opinion, I think there would be more opportunity for people to make a better living in our country. I really do. Not because he's going to solve everything, but because there's going to be an attitude of, hey, America's really, coming back. The rest of the world, because I've done business all over the world, Stephen, with these people that when I was still working, these people used to, this is a bright, shining star, this country. And I see people now that, it's like considered not that way. I believe the country, if it were...
But what's the reason for that? Like, why is that? Why do they feel that way? There's an objective reason why.
Well, first of all, we should have never gone to Iraq. That's the first, it's the biggest reason, and that's because we didn't talk to them. But you know what Saddam Hussein did? He told us, he said, you won't win this war. And guess what? He was right, and he gave his life and showed that, because honest and truthfully, he sat there knowing he was going to die.
if we can bring it back for a minute. So you say you don't like Bernie Sanders because he's a socialist. So what does that mean when you say that? When you call somebody a socialist, like what does that mean to you?
What does it mean to you?
I think. Well, here's my perspective. You consider yourself a Christian, right?
I am a Christian.
So but there's different kinds of Christianity, right? There's the Catholic Church, there's the Protestant Church. Within Protestant, there's Lutherans and Baptists, there's different things, right?
Listen, Stephen, let me share this with you. God is not a religion; He's a reality. So so as far as religion,
here's my point, though, is that it's semantics. It's semantics where you're calling yourself, where people might say, well, I don't like Christians. We're like, well, what don't you like about Christians? Who is it that you're objecting to? Like when people complain about there's a problem with socialism, there's a problem with capitalism. Like, what are you actually talking about? You're just using words. Like, it doesn't really mean anything. So what is it objectively that you have a problem with?
I just ask you, what do you like about socialism?
I don't like socialism and I don't like capitalism. I
What do you like?
I think that I think that within those I think that the words don't mean anything. Is my point. So I wouldn't hate somebody just because they call themselves a socialist. I wouldn't hate somebody because they call themselves a capitalist. I'd say, well, what does that really mean? What are you advocating for? So, for example, let me give you a good example. George Orwell. George Orwell wrote these books where people say that they're very anti-socialist, like Animal Farm, where he's warning about what can happen, or 1984, where he's talking about this totalitarian state. George Orwell was a democratic socialist. He fought in the Spanish Civil War against Franco. So, you have to look at the nuanced argument for what somebody's actually advocating for, not just, they call themselves this word, so I don't like them.
See, we have a different outlook on things. I look at things a lot different than this. Here's what I think. I think that a lot of people are told every day that go back and look at history and what history, and it's going to repeat. I don't think that you look at history, because history is not where we live. We live in now. We live right now today.
It sounds like you're just going to say that people that don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Isn't that the popular thing?
I'm saying that, for example, I'm going to give you the greatest example I know. People talk about the stock market and that the cycle of the cycles that the stock market run in are like every 20 years. But you know what they don't know? The people that don't know anything about stocks, they don't understand that the stocks that are in the Dow Jones, for example, they dump them out and put in a new company. So what happens?
Really a bad standard. So, that's what you should be looking at.
So what I'm trying to get at is, whatever is put on the table to us is what they're trying to be dished out to us, and every day. So whether when you go to college and when you go to get an education, whatever that instructor steers you toward is what he's trying to get through to you. That's right. And whether that's right or whether that's wrong. And the truth is, I don't agree with this teaching of, well, everything goes and everything is right. There's nothing right and there's nothing wrong.
Right.
Well, no, something. The only thing that I know that's right is that, for me, I read the Bible, and when I read the Bible, it doesn't take a genius to figure out that those things in there, they talk about, well, some man wrote that, Constantine did this, that person did that. You know what? All these words come from a creator. So I'm smart enough. I think I'm a really smart man because I'm really smart enough to understand that God created all of the words that are spoken to begin with and spoke these things into existence. And the truth is that people take and twist and take all of these things that have been put out here and make them into something that they're not. So that the facts are that I am not one that looks at history, and I'm talking about world history of people, human beings. And I look at that and I believe that if we don't do this today, that same thing is going to happen again tomorrow. I believe that what we need to look for, and whether we'll have it or not, is based on whether we do things right. Not the way I'm saying to do them, but people know what's right and what's wrong. But the sad part is the Ten Commandments aren't really a bad thing. And if people would just do something like that, things would be a lot better off. But you know what? People want to kill. And the first thing God tells us, I shall not kill. So, I mean, they get it right off. So we don't have to go any further than that one to see that there's a real problem in the world.
I agree.
I think there is. I guess the only question is how to solve it. So we're reaching the 2-hour mark, which means we don't have much electronic tape left. So, do you have any final thoughts? Do you have any final stories that you get to tell, that you want to tell?
Yeah, there's one that David wanted me to go back to, and I think I probably ought to try to attempt that. What was the question that you were asking David earlier?
The question was, a story you told me one time. You had
Oh, yeah.
You had a story you said one time about how you owned a car and you ended up in, I think it was either Las Vegas or California, and then you ended up coming back, and by the time you came back, you had no keys in the car.
Well, all right, I'll tell you. What took place was that. That's right. After we got divorced, I went ahead and went to California, and a doctor that runs a hospital in New Orleans. I was at a party at my house, at my apartment in the French Quarter, and he was sitting there. We was talking about, well, what do you do? I said, I'm getting ready to go to California. And he said, boy, my car would sell fast out there. He had a brand new 65 Ford Galaxy convertible. And he said, because I want to sell it. And he said, I think I get more money for it. He said, why don't, he was drinking a couple of drinks, and he said, why don't you drive it out there? Take it out there. He said, what are you going to drive? I said, we're going to fly. So Jerry and I, my friend, we took his car, went out to California, but the car had registration in Mississippi where he was from, and the dealership got sold. And when I was selling the car to the dealer in California, in the state of Mississippi, they don't have titles on cars at that time. They had what's called bridge and road receipts. So we couldn't get a title, and we couldn't get, because the dealership had been sold, and it was going to be another 3 weeks before we could get any of the paperwork. And then my mother had a heart attack, and so I told my friend, I said, we're going to have to go home because I got to go back. So what happened was that the apartment in Hollywood that we had gotten, I'd just given the apartment complex $1,240 deposit. They didn't have the money to come back. So what I did was when I got I was leaving town, I was at a gas station, and this Mexican fellow says to me that worked in the station, oh man, this car is beautiful. And I told the doctor, I said, I have to come back because, he said, well, bring the car back. I said, well, I'm bringing the car back because I'm going to need some money to get out. I'm not getting any money. I said, well, I can't sell the car because of you not. And so the guy says to me, well, I really like that seat, that console in that car. And so I said, how much you want to give me for it? And so I sold him the bucket seats in the front and the console to the car. And he gave us 2 spare tires and an orange crate. And we used those to ride, sit on a blanket he gave us to drive back from California. So when an orange crate and a tire that was a bit, without a rim on it, a tire sitting with a blanket on it. So when we get back into Louisiana, right at the border of Texas and Louisiana, I see this black car. I said, well, that looks like a police car or something that's following us. And it was an FBI agent that followed me all the way to New Orleans. Now, remember,
The FBI followed
Yeah, the
you?
FBI came back all the way to New Orleans, and they arrested me for theft and possession of bucket seats in the console. But so what had happened was the policeman that was the New Orleans policeman that arrested me, when he came to the house with the FBI agent, it was the same policeman who had recovered my car that had been stolen only a couple of months earlier. And he says, and he'd come to eat at our house even, you know, and everything. He says, what are you doing? What's going on here? He says, it's a friend of mine. And he says, well, he's arrested for theft. Oh, we can't do that. What's going on? So he took me and tried to move me around to different jails and stuff so they wouldn't be able to book me and all that stuff. And so I was able to have my dad called the man that the doctor that owned the car, and my friend that owned the dealership, he put in some seats and stuff for me, and the doctor took the car back. And that's all. It's, yeah, but it was an interesting trip.
Well, this has been an interesting trip, and I appreciate you being on the show.
And I'm sure that your producer is appreciated.
Yeah. But I think we're gonna have a song playing us out tonight. You know Steve Lipia, right?
Steve Lipia. Oh, I know more than you know about Steve Lipia.
Well, I have a.
I'm going to go ahead and tell the story of Steve Lipia if you want, real quick.
Okay, go ahead.
Now, Steve may disagree with this.
But when Steve was a young boy, he used to sing music with your grandfather.
I don't think he disagrees with that.
Okay. But what happened was, in West Palm Beach, I was going to the grocery store one day, and there's this guy in the parking lot, and I said, why? I said, I know who that guy is, but he was older. And I drove by to him. I said, man, I tell you, I know you from somewhere, but I just don't know where. He says, man, I know you too. I said, where are you from? He says, from Connecticut. And I said, you're Steve Lipia. And he said, right. And he says, you're married. The guy that married Robbie, right? I said, yeah. And so I said, what are you doing? And he was redoing the parking lot of the Winn-Dixie Shopping Center. And I said, Steve, what are you doing here doing this instead of singing music? And he says, you got to eat. So I said, yeah, why don't you eat making music instead of doing it? And then when 6 months later, he was on Extra on television. You can go look on YouTube and see the whole show Extra did on him. And he went back into the music stuff, and now he's still doing big time. I get emails from him and stuff all the time, and Facebook stuff.
That is interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you both again for being on the show tonight.
I'd like to
You're welcome.
thank your producer for letting me twist his cord on this, which I'm sure will make the speaker's microphone work much better, won't it?
But I do want to, tonight playing us out, I want to have a song by Bobby Kay. This is Steve Lipia singing on this. It is Summer. Thanks again.
All right, thank you for having me.
Are we still on your show?
Yes, we're still on my show.
I have an after hours.
There's nobody watching this. Like I told you, nobody was going to sit through 2 hours of this nonsense.
And how many? I'm sorry. I can't sit here and just not talk and say things that I don't like.
What I said you don't like.
No, I mean,
Yeah, most things, Steve.
I thought that was good back and forth.
what I meant by that is that the education I have is street education.
Yeah.
And the education you got is professor educated that are not.
Good.
No, but you be able to take things that you know how to pick up and how to research and do the street smart. But you got education smart that if you combine street smart, you can have a really great life. But you can, political stuff, I mean, that's, maybe we should have left that alone. I should have told you more about some of the, it was really concert, even though it, yeah, right archetype. I thought they really, they were awesome, man. They were really good. And in Chicago, I didn't really get into Chicago. But Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Thing out of the way.
They were pretty good.
That thing's right in the way, that microphone.
Earlier Chicago.
Move that other one too, Steve.
The Crosby, Stills, and Nash. They were pretty good.
Yeah, you can shut it off.
Okay.
But I couldn't talk about Neil Diamond because that, Jesse Jones likes. And I think Neil Diamond should be wheeled out on a wheelchair, and then they let him sing in a wheelchair. I like Rod Stewart, though. I think Rod Stewart, he's even better than he used to be years ago.
It's horrible.
Yeah,
That's
terrible.
rejected.
I think you like Rod Stewart.
Sucked back then.
Well, the part I don't like is Rush Limbaugh's best friend. The two of them are best buds. They hang out all the time together.
But
He's a terrible musician. That's why I would have picked it.
well, my mind is mush after listening to all this back and forth about God knows what.
Now, since you're the producer, is that correct? You're the producer. Yeah. What would you like to see produced? Because I can get some people that are intelligent for you to interview. Somebody like
To get produced?
What would you like to do? You
I don't know anyone to be on the show. I don't know.
It's good to have a variety of guests.
Yeah. Get somebody that's interesting. Somebody that people are going to want to listen to.
Yeah.
What about the people that go to the comedy store and stuff like that? See, we have one of these in West Palm Beach, and they interviewed them, and they seem to be pretty good when we talk to them. Somebody like that.
I like a lot of people that go to the comedy store.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Joe Rogan.
Together.
How about Burt Reynolds?
Well, would you like to do Burt Reynolds?
Because he's relevant.
We'll give him a call.
I'll even try Eric Clapton. Well, nobody else owns the pig. I don't do it.
You owned the pig of the gardener that worked for Eric Clapton.
No, I did not own the garden. the man that
You owned the pig of the gardener.
He came over here, and the man that had the pig at his house was Frank, who built all of the retreat and everything, and built his home for Eric Clapton.
It's all right. So the pig belonged to some guy who worked for Eric Clapton.
Yeah, but Eric Clapton missed it.
That doesn't make him Eric Clapton's pig, Dad. The guy who did some work for Eric Clapton. That's whose pig.
But he still Eric Clapton.
Close enough.
Music? You never had a pig that Eric Clapton was.
He didn't own it. It belonged to the man who did work for Eric Clapton.
No, it belonged to Eric Clapton.
All right.
It came over from the island where his retreat is. That's Eric Clapton.
All right. So I'm going to wrap this up because I can't handle any more of this. Thank you, Stephen.
But the stuff with the silverware, we're not supposed to talk about that.
I'm still streaming this,
Huh?
I'm still streaming. This is still, but there's nobody watching this. I told you nobody was going to watch this nonsense.
So, but can it still be looked at by somebody like
Yes, if they're completely insane, they'll watch this.
We'll just wrap it up.
Yeah, I'm going to. Nobody's going to ever watch this crap. It's like terrible.
What is it on? What is it on?
It's nothing. It's on something that nobody's ever going to. It's just ridiculous.
Is that on Montclair?
Yes. Okay, so that's it. We're done with this. Thanks for watching this nonsense. Nobody, because there's nobody watching it. And that's it. Goodbye.
No,
We're
but
done.
that's not the point. The point is, who will you show